My name is Emberlyn. I used to be afraid of Mondays, not because I was lazy, but because every Monday I watched my husband walk out the door with tired eyes and an empty smile. I packed his lunch, kissed his hand, and hoped nothing would go wrong again. He worked for a big supply company in Los Angeles. It was a cold place. No one smiled there. He never talked about his job. But his face told me enough. Caleb was not lazy. He was not weak. He worked harder than anyone I knew. But no matter how hard he tried, nothing changed. We had just enough money for bills, food, and gas. There were no extras, no new shoes, no dinner nights out. Sometimes I found coins in old bags and felt like I found treasure. Life was tight, but we stayed quiet. I stayed home with the kids. I cleaned, cooked, and tried to keep the house warm with love. But every time I saw Caleb come home late, with sore feet and heavy shoulders, I felt my heart crack a little more. I wanted to fix things, but I didn't know how. Until one day everything broke at once. Every morning, Caleb woke up early and took the train to work. He sat near the window and looked outside. His thoughts were heavy. He never said much about work, but I knew it was not easy. At work, no one respected him. His boss shouted at him in meetings. He said bad things like, "You're slow," and "Don't mess up." No one said "good job" or "thank you." Some people laughed. Caleb kept quiet. He needed the job. We needed the money. He did not have friends at work. He ate lunch alone, just a sandwich, just water, just silence. Some nights he came home late. His back hurt. His feet were sore. His shoes had small holes. Still, he said nothing. He tried to be strong. I held his hand and made tea. I told him, "You are doing your best." He smiled a little and said, "I hope so." Then one day, it all changed. He made a mistake at work. It was only one number in a file. It was small. It could be fixed. But his boss didn't care. He called Caleb to the office. He shouted again, but this time it was different. He said, "You're fired." Just like that. No second chance. No warning. Just pack your things. That day, my husband lost everything. He picked up his bag and left. No one said goodbye. No one helped. Outside, it was raining. He didn't have an umbrella. His jacket was thin. He walked to the train with wet shoes and a heavy heart. The city felt loud. The world felt cold. I remember that day very well. I was washing dishes when the door opened. I saw his face. I knew. He looked broken. He looked tired. He looked lost. I said nothing at first. I just walked to him and held his hand. He sat down slowly on the couch. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. Only our hearts were loud. Then he told me everything, every word, every detail. I listened. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I looked at him and said, "We'll be okay." I didn't know how, but I had to believe. For him. For us. He said, "I failed." I said, "No. They failed to see you." He looked at me. I smiled through my worry. I kissed his forehead and said, "Now it's our time." That night, we didn't sleep. We sat at the table and talked. The kitchen light was soft. I made tea. He drank it slowly. We talked about our dreams. We had no plan, no money, but we had ideas. We had each other. Caleb knew the supply world. He knew delivery people. He knew drivers, traffic, and how things moved in the city. I said, "Maybe we can start something small." He said, "But we need money." I stood up and went to the closet. I came back with a small wooden box. Inside were old things I had kept for years. My silver necklace, my bracelet from my grandmother, a few gold rings from my mother. I placed them on the table. "Sell them," I said. "Start the business." He looked at me with wide eyes. "But they are special," he said. I smiled and said, "So are you. And I believe in you." He tried to say no. He felt shame. But I held his hand and said, "This is our chance." The next day, Caleb went to a shop and sold the jewelry. It gave us just enough. He bought a small used laptop. He printed simple business cards. He opened a phone line. He rented a small desk in a shared office near downtown. The name of our business was simple: Fast Track Couriers. He said the name while smiling for the first time in days. "We will move things fast. On track," he said. I said, "We will move our life forward too." The office was tiny. One desk, one chair, one window. The table shook when he typed. But it was ours. It was a start. He called old contacts. He sent emails. He waited. Most people didn't reply. Some forgot his name. But one man remembered. That man gave us our first delivery job. It was small, only a few boxes to pick up and drop off. Caleb borrowed a friend's car. He packed the order himself. He drove across the city and delivered it with care. The client was happy. The next day, that same client told another, then another. Soon we had 3 small orders a week. I helped too. I picked up phone calls. I made lists. I sent thank you notes. I packed snacks for Caleb before he left for deliveries. Some days no calls came. No work. Just silence. I saw Caleb sit in the chair staring at the wall. I walked in, placed coffee in front of him, kissed his cheek and said, "Keep going." That became my daily line. Soft words, strong words. And he moved again. Week by week, job by job, things grew. We saved every dollar. We bought a better chair. We printed better cards. Caleb smiled more. I slept better. The kids still shared a room, but they had shoes without holes now. We still cooked rice and beans, but the plates were full. One night, we were counting coins after dinner. We had paid rent, bills, and still had some left. Caleb looked at me and smiled. "Look how far we came," he said. I smiled too. My eyes were wet. I didn't feel tired in that moment. I felt proud. We were not rich, not yet, but we were stronger. We had hope. And this was just the beginning. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The name Fast Track Couriers started to spread, slowly, quietly. One happy client told a friend. That friend told another. We were not famous. We were not fast like big companies, but we were careful. We were honest. We called people back. We said thank you and sorry when needed. We showed up. That mattered. Caleb worked all day. He drove around Los Angeles in an old car. The air conditioner was broken. The seatbelt was stuck. Sometimes the car did not start, but he didn't complain. He just kept going. I answered the phone at home. I made notes and helped with the invoices. At night, we sat at the table and checked every order. We wanted to do it right, but it was hard. Some weeks were slow, very slow. No orders, just silence. We waited near the phone like it was a lifeline. I saw Caleb lose hope sometimes. He would sit still for hours, his hands flat on the table, no smile, no words. I didn't know how to fix it, so I just sat beside him. I held his hand. I said, "Let's wait one more day." Then one day, something happened. A big company called. They needed help with same-day deliveries. It was not forever, just a few weeks. But they were in trouble and needed a small team that worked fast. They said, "We heard you're reliable." My heart beat fast. Caleb was not home. I said, "Yes, we are. We will help." I wrote down the details and waited for him to come home. When Caleb opened the door, I ran to him. I showed him the paper. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared. Then he smiled. A real smile. A full smile. And I knew this job could change things. We worked all night to prepare. We checked the car. We cleaned the bags. We made maps and lists. It was a lot for 2 people, but we did it. The company was happy with our work. They said, "You saved us this week," and they paid on time. That money helped us fix the car. It helped us buy new bags and boxes. It helped us breathe. That same client gave us more work later, and they told others. That's how we grew. Not fast, but steady. After some time, we had enough money to rent a small warehouse. It was not big. It had high, gray walls and no windows, but it had space. And that meant we could take more orders. We put a desk inside, a shelf for files, a fridge, and a kettle for tea. It became our second home. We hired our first helper. His name was Joel. He was quiet, but kind. Young, but fast. He asked questions and listened. He stayed late and helped Caleb without being asked. One day I saw Joel sweeping the floor. He was humming a song, smiling. I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah. I like it here." That made me feel warm inside. I remembered how Caleb felt at his old job, cold, alone. Joel felt different. And that meant we were doing something right. More clients came, some from far parts of the city, some from small businesses like us. We made each one feel important. We never lied. We never shouted. When we made mistakes, we said sorry, and we fixed it. We hired 2 more people, Sarah and Tom. Sarah was smart and full of ideas. Tom was slow at first but careful. Caleb trained them both. He showed them how to label boxes, how to load the car, how to speak kindly on the phone. I handled calls, papers, and snacks. We became a team, a small team, but a real one. Some days were good. Orders came in. Calls kept coming. We laughed while packing. We shared lunch. We played music in the warehouse. Other days were hard. The car broke down. A storm came. A box went to the wrong address. A client got angry. Caleb came home late, his eyes tired. But still he smiled at me. I always said the same words, "Keep going." And he did. We didn't take days off. Not even on weekends. We worked every single day. We made deliveries. We cleaned the space. We called clients. At night, we counted coins. We made lists for tomorrow. We checked the fridge. We boiled water for tea. Then we slept for a few hours and woke up to do it again. Still, something felt different now. We were not just surviving. We were building, and that gave us hope. One evening, something strange happened. Caleb was checking emails at the warehouse. I was sweeping the floor. The kids were home with my sister. The warehouse was quiet. Then Caleb called me. His face looked pale. His hand was shaking. I asked, "What is it?" He turned the laptop and showed me an email. It was from a name he knew. It was Mr. Dawson, his old boss, the one who fired him, the one who shouted at him in meetings, the one who called him useless. I felt cold inside. The email was short. Just a few lines. "We heard about fast-track couriers. We may need help. Our numbers are bad. Things are not going well. Can we talk?" Caleb sat still for a long time. I could feel his heartbeat from across the room. He didn't speak. I didn't either. I walked over and sat beside him. He looked at me. I said, "Nothing. I just waited." Then he asked, "What should I do?" I wanted to say, "Ignore them." I wanted to say, "They don't deserve your help." But I looked at him. I saw his face. And I remembered something important. This was not about revenge. This was about who we were now. So I said, "Maybe this is not about him. Maybe this is about you." We sat there in silence for a long time. The lights buzzed above. The night was quiet. Caleb closed the laptop and said, "I'll think about it." That night, we didn't sleep again. We talked in whispers. We drank tea in the dark. We remembered everything. The pain, the loss, the start, the fight, the dream. We looked at each other and asked, "Are we ready for this?" Maybe we were. Maybe it was time. The next day, Caleb sent a short reply. He said, "We can meet." He did not sound happy. He did not sound proud. He sounded calm, quiet, clear. I watched him hit send. His hands were steady, but I knew his heart was full of old pain. 3 days later, we walked into the same office where he used to work. I had never been there before. It looked cold. The walls were gray. The lights were too bright. The chairs were old and hard. I saw a few workers moving slowly. No one smiled. No one talked. We waited in the lobby. Caleb didn't speak. He looked at the floor. I held his hand. Then Mr. Dawson walked in. He looked smaller now, not just in size, but in spirit. His face had lines. His eyes looked tired. He held out his hand. Caleb shook it. We sat in a small meeting room. The air felt heavy. Mr. Dawson talked about problems, delays, angry clients, workers leaving. He said, "We can't keep up. We need a partner, someone who knows this business, someone like you." Then he looked at Caleb and said, "Would you consider buying part of the company?" The room went silent. I looked at Caleb. He looked down for a long time. Then he said, "I need time." Mr. Dawson said, "Of course." We stood up and left. Outside, the sun felt warm. The air smelled sweet. The sky looked blue. We drove home in silence. The city moved around us. But inside the car, everything was still. That night, we talked again. In our small kitchen, with soft lights and warm tea, I said, "You don't owe him anything." Caleb said, "I know." Then I said, "But this may not be about him. This may be about the people who still work there. People like you, people who need someone who understands." Caleb stayed quiet, but I saw it in his eyes. He knew what to do. 1 week later, we signed papers. Fast Track Couriers would now own part of the old company. Not just the name, not just the office, but the people inside too. The first time we walked in as owners, no one clapped. No one smiled. Most people looked confused. Some looked scared. That was okay. We understood. We called a meeting. Everyone sat in plastic chairs. The room was full. Caleb stood at the front. His voice was soft, but strong. He said, "I used to work here. Many of you don't remember me, but I remember this place. I remember the fear. I remember the silence. I remember feeling small." He paused. Then he said, "That is going to change." He did not give a long speech, just simple words, honest ones. He said, "You matter. Your work matters. Your time matters. Some people looked away. Some stared, but one or two smiled. That was enough to start. The next week, we cleaned the office. Together, no one was too good to help. Caleb lifted chairs. Joel painted the walls. Sarah made lists. Tom fixed lights. I brought food and made tea. We changed the rules. Breaks were clear. Hours were fair. Pay was honest. No more shouting. No more fear. We put a big sign on the wall. It said, "Kindness first." People stopped and read it. Little by little, things changed. Workers talked more. They smiled. They moved faster. Not because we pushed them, but because they felt safe. We listened. That was the most important thing. We asked, "What do you need?" They told us. Some wanted better tools. Some wanted more rest in summer. One woman said, "No one ever asked me before." That made me want to cry. Caleb gave short meetings every Friday, not to talk about problems, but to say, "Well done." We clapped for people who helped others. We gave small gifts, not money, just snacks, notes, smiles. One worker named George stayed late one night to help a new man. We gave him a thank you card. He said, "No one ever thanked me at work before." I said, "That will never happen again." Work got better. Clients saw the change. Orders were faster, cleaner, fewer mistakes. We didn't spend money on ads. Our work spoke for us. Caleb said, "Respect is the best ad." One day, a school group came to visit. They wanted to learn about couriers and business. We showed them the office, the drivers, the warehouse. A small boy raised his hand and asked Caleb, "Were you always the boss?" Caleb smiled and said, "No. I used to clean the floors." The boy blinked. "Then how did you become the boss?" Caleb said, "By never giving up. By choosing respect." The boy nodded. He drew a picture of Caleb. It showed a man with a big smile standing next to a building with a heart on it. Under the drawing, he wrote one word, "Hero." We put that picture on the wall near the office door. It reminded us why we started. At home, life changed too. We painted the kids' room, bought them new coats. We ate together every night. We laughed more. I sang again while washing dishes. Caleb held my hand more often. We were not rich, but we were full of peace, full of meaning, full of love. One night, I sat on the couch. The kids were asleep. Caleb came in and sat beside me. He looked around the house. He said, "Do you remember that first night, when I lost my job?" I nodded. I remembered everything. He smiled and said, "You believed in me." When I didn't believe in myself, I leaned my head on his shoulder. I said, "We believed in each other." That's what saved us. Outside, the street was quiet. The lights were soft. The world was still. But inside, my heart was full, and we were just getting started. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments. My name is Claire. I am 29 years old. I lived a quiet life in the town of Redding. I worked at a small clinic as a receptionist. Every day felt the same. It was simple and peaceful. I did not think my life would ever change. Then I met Daniel. He came into the clinic with his friend. His friend had hurt his hand. Daniel stood beside him, calm and polite. He smiled at me and asked for a pen. After that day, he came back again, but alone. He said he liked to walk by the clinic and stopped just to say hello. Soon, We started talking more. We met for coffee after work. He was funny, kind, and a little quiet. He said he worked with electronics and fixed phones at home. He told me he did small jobs for friends and earned cash that way. I liked that he was simple, like me. After 2 months, we became a couple. He often came to my flat and stayed the night. He brought food and cooked dinner. He helped clean. Sometimes we sat in silence, and it still felt nice. He looked at me with warm eyes. I felt lucky. One evening, he said he wanted to move in with me. I said yes. We bought a small wardrobe for his things. He kept his backpack near the door. He said it held tools. I never looked inside. Everything seemed fine in the beginning. He worked during the day and sometimes left in the evening to fix phones. I believed him. He always came back before midnight. He never smelled like alcohol. He never shouted. I felt safe. But slowly, I started to notice small things. He would never take phone calls near me. If his phone rang, he would step out onto the balcony. He said, "It's just a work call." Sometimes he left the flat without telling me first. I asked where he was going, and he always said, "Just helping someone." One night he came home with a small cut on his hand. I asked what happened. He said, "A broken phone screen." I gave him a bandage. He smiled and said it was nothing. Another time, I was cleaning the flat. I found a roll of black tape and a screwdriver under the sofa. It looked new and unused. I asked, "Why is this here?" He said, "I used it earlier. I forgot to put it back." I said nothing more. He started to carry more cash. He paid the rent without delay. He bought me flowers and nice food. But we both worked simple jobs. I asked, "Where is this money from?" He said, "From clients. Some give extra. It's lucky." I wanted to trust him. I really did. One Friday night he left at 9 p.m. He said he had to meet someone near the train station. I stayed home and watched a film, but he didn't return until after 1 a.m. When he came in, his hands were cold. He looked tired. I asked, "What took so long?" He said, "The phone was worse than I thought." I went to bed, but I could not sleep. My heart felt heavy. I started to feel something was wrong. A few days later, I opened the cupboard to look for biscuits. His black backpack was there. I paused. I had never touched it. But that night, something pulled me to look. I opened it just a little. Inside, I saw black gloves, 2 screwdrivers, and a small plastic card I didn't recognize. I zipped the bag shut. He came home 10 minutes later. I acted normal. That weekend, we visited my sister in Oxford. Daniel was quiet during the drive. At lunch, my sister asked him, "What do you do for work?" He smiled and said, "Tech jobs, fixing things." She looked confused, but said nothing more. On the drive back, Daniel said, "I don't like your sister much." I asked why. he said. "She asks too many questions." One night, I could not sleep again. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. Daniel was on the balcony, on the phone. His voice was low. I heard the words job and tonight. I stayed still. When he came in, he jumped a little. He didn't expect me to be awake. He asked, "Why are you up?" I said, "Couldn't sleep." He walked to the bathroom and closed the door. I sat at the table, thinking. The next morning, he was already gone. I found a note on the fridge. "Back soon. Don't wait." Hours passed. It was almost lunch when he returned. He held a small plastic bag in one hand. He said, "Just parts." I didn't ask, but my hands shook when I washed the dishes. A few days later, a neighbor stopped me in the hall. Her name was Mrs. Rayner. She said, "I saw your boyfriend outside at 2 a.m. He was talking to a man in a dark coat." I asked, "Where?" She pointed to the side street. "Right there," she said. I went back into my flat and sat down. My head felt hot. I told myself, maybe it's nothing. But my heart knew better. That night, I waited until Daniel slept. I went to the cupboard and took the backpack again. I opened it fully. I found a black mask, 2 phones without SIM cards, a map with a red circle drawn on it, and 3 more plastic cards. I didn't know what they were. I felt sick. I put everything back, locked the cupboard, and went to bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning I asked him, "What kind of jobs do you really do?" He looked at me, his face still. "I told you. I fix things." I said, "I found your bag." He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You don't understand." I said, "Then help me understand." He stood up and walked to the window. "I have some people I work with," he said. "We do small jobs. Just tech stuff. No one gets hurt." I whispered, "Are you in trouble?" He turned. "Not yet." I wanted to cry, but my eyes were dry. I asked, "Is it illegal?" He looked away. "Some of it is." I felt like I couldn't breathe. He said, "I do this to pay my debts." I didn't want you to know. I was going to stop. I said, "When?" He didn't answer. That night I lay in bed and looked at the ceiling. I thought about the first time we met. I remembered his smile. It felt like a lie now, but a small part of me still loved him. That was the worst part. The next day, I called my sister. Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. My sister's name is Ruth. She is older than me. She is also stronger. I called her from work and asked if I could come over. She said yes at once. I left early and took the bus to her house. I held my bag close the whole ride. My hands would not stop shaking. When I got there, she gave me tea and asked what was wrong. I told her about Daniel. Not everything, but enough, I said. He hides things. I found strange tools and cards. I think it's not legal. Ruth looked at me for a long time. She didn't speak right away. Finally, she said, "Claire, you have to be careful. You don't really know what he's doing." I nodded. She said, "You should leave. Come stay here for a few nights." I wanted to say yes, but I said, "I need to go back. I need to hear the full truth." Ruth looked worried. She said, "Don't wait too long." I promised I wouldn't. That night, I returned home. Daniel wasn't there. I sat on the sofa and looked at the door. I thought about what to say. I was scared, but I was more scared of not knowing the truth. He came in at midnight. His coat was wet. He looked tired. He said, "You're still awake?" I said yes. He walked to the kitchen and poured water. I stood and said, "We need to talk." He turned around, silent. I said, "You can't lie anymore. I know something is wrong. I found the bag. I saw the map. I saw the phones." He sat down and looked at the floor. After a moment, he said, "I didn't want you to know. I didn't plan to bring it into your life." I asked, "What are you doing?" He said, "It's small jobs. Just data things. I break into systems. We take cards. We sell them. No one gets hurt." My legs felt weak. I sat down. "That's a crime, Daniel." He said, "Yes, but it was never meant to last. Just to fix my life." He told me he was in debt. He owed money to the wrong people. He tried to work at a shop, but the money was not enough. A man he knew offered him quick jobs. He took the first one, then the second. Soon, it became a regular thing. I asked, "Do you want to stop?" He said, "Yes." I asked, "Do you mean that?" He looked me in the eyes. "Yes, but I need help." I didn't know what to do. I said, "You have to tell someone, or walk away now." He said, "If I walk away, they will find me." I felt cold. I stood and walked to the window. For a long time, we said nothing. The next morning, I called in sick. Daniel slept late. I sat at the table with my tea. I thought about the past year. I thought about the kind man who gave me flowers, the one who fixed my old toaster and made soup when I was ill. That man was still here. But now, he came with danger. Daniel got up around noon. He sat across from me and said, "I'll stop. I'll burn the maps. I'll delete the files. I'll give back the tools. I swear it." He took my hand. "Will you stay with me?" I didn't answer. That evening we made pasta. It felt almost normal. He put music on. We ate and talked about films. I laughed once, but inside I was tired. That night I didn't sleep beside him. I slept on the sofa. The next day, I returned to work. Ruth messaged me 3 times. "Are you okay?" I said. "Not sure." She called and said, "I've been reading. You need to be careful. These men don't stop easy." I asked, "What would you do?" She said, "Leave now." I said, "I want to give him one chance." She said, "Then don't give more than that." That evening, Daniel came home early. He brought flowers. He looked hopeful. He said, "I turned the phones off. I'm done." I told them I quit. I asked, "Did they believe you?" He said, "They weren't happy, but they let me go." I wasn't sure if it was true. A few days passed. Things seemed quiet. Daniel stayed home. He cleaned, cooked, and played music. He helped an old neighbor carry her bags. He smiled more. He made plans for us to visit his aunt. For the first time in weeks, I felt a little peace, but it didn't last. One night, there was a loud knock at the door. It was past midnight. We were in bed. Daniel froze. I sat up. He whispered, "Don't answer." My heart pounded. The knock came again. Then silence. After 5 minutes, Daniel walked to the door. He didn't open it. He waited. After a long pause, he looked through the peephole. He turned to me and said, "It's no one." But I didn't believe him. He stayed up the rest of the night. I heard him walking in the kitchen, opening and closing drawers. I didn't ask what he was doing. The next day he said, "I need to go out." I asked, "Where?" He said, "Just for a walk." I watched from the window as he left. I had a strange feeling, so I followed him. I stayed far behind. He walked fast and looked around often. He turned into an alley behind a shop. I stopped and waited. After 10 minutes, he came out with a small bag. When we got home, I asked, "What's in the bag?" He looked surprised. "You followed me?" I said, "Just tell me." He opened the bag. Inside was a phone, gloves, and cash. My heart sank. "You said you stopped," I whispered. He said, "I did. This is the last thing." "You promised," I said. "I had no choice," he replied. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't ready to stop. Not really. I packed a small bag and called Ruth. She said, "Come now." I left Daniel a note. "I love you, but I can't stay in this." He wasn't home when I left. I locked the door behind me and walked away. I stayed with Ruth for a few days. She gave me a small room in her flat. Her baby was always smiling, and that helped me smile too. But inside, I felt confused. I still loved Daniel, but I could not trust him anymore. He said he wanted to stop, but I saw he was still hiding things. I read the note I left on the table before I left our flat. I had written, "I love you, but I cannot live in fear." I meant every word. Daniel sent me many messages. He said he was sorry. He asked me to come back. He told me that he was ready to stop and wanted to change, but I didn't answer. I needed time to think. Ruth told me I did the right thing. She said, "Love is not enough if there is danger." I knew she was right. On the third day, Daniel came to Ruth's flat. He didn't call before coming. I was sitting in the kitchen when Ruth walked in and said, "Daniel is outside." My heart started to beat fast. I did not know if I wanted to see him or tell him to go away. I walked out the door and saw him standing near the street. He looked tired. His clothes were messy, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He said, "Hi, Claire. Can we talk?" I didn't speak right away, but I nodded. We walked to a quiet park near the flat. We sat on a bench. I didn't look at him at first. Daniel said, "I know you left because I lied. I did lie. I said I stopped the jobs, but I didn't. I was scared to stop. I didn't want to lose you. But I did, anyway." I stayed quiet. I was listening, but I wanted to hear more. He said, "I burned the maps. I threw away the tools. I told the others I won't do this anymore." I turned to him and asked, "Did they believe you?" He said, "Maybe not, but I had to try. I'm tired of living like this." I asked, "What happens now?" He took a deep breath and said, "I want to go to the police. I want to tell them everything. If I don't stop now, it will only get worse. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt you." I looked at him. His eyes were red, but honest. I asked, "Will you go alone?" He nodded. "I already called them. I'm going tomorrow morning." That shocked me. I didn't know what to say. He was really going to do it. He said, "I'm not asking you to wait for me. I just wanted to tell you the truth before I go." We sat in silence for a few minutes. I looked at the trees, the sky, and the street. It was a quiet day, but inside me, everything felt loud. Before we left the park, I said, "If you truly do this, I will be proud of you, but I can't promise I'll come back." He nodded. "I understand." He walked me back to Ruth's flat. At the door, he said, "Thank you for helping me see what I had become." Then he left. The next morning, I waited. I kept checking my phone. Around noon, I got a message from Daniel. It said, "I went in. They took my statement. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel better." I wrote back, "I'm proud of you." That was the first time I replied since I left. A week later, I got another message. He said the police had charged him. He would be in jail for 6 months. He also said, "I know that's not long, but I'll use the time to change. You gave me a reason to try." I moved to a new town. It was not far, but it felt like a fresh start. I got a new job at a dentist's office. The people there were kind. I kept myself busy with work and books. I also started writing in a small notebook. It helped me stay calm. Every night, I wrote one thing I was thankful for. Some days it was just tea or quiet, but it helped. I didn't visit Daniel in jail. He sent me one letter. He said he was learning to live better. He was helping in the kitchen and reading books. He didn't ask me to come back. He just said, "I hope you are happy and safe." That's enough for me. I cried after reading it, but it didn't hurt like before. It was a soft sadness. After 6 months, I heard that Daniel had finished his time. I didn't call him. I didn't send a message. I didn't want to open that door again. Some people change, but I wasn't sure if love was enough for me to forget. One evening, Ruth and I sat on the balcony. She asked, "Do you still miss him?" I said, "Sometimes. But I miss the good version of him. Not the one who kept secrets." She nodded and passed me a cup of tea. I thought about my life now. It was quiet and safe. I had peace. I didn't wake up in fear. I didn't check the door 3 times. I didn't hide my thoughts. That meant more than anything. Daniel was part of my life. I would never forget him. He had shown me love, but he also showed me what happens when love has lies inside it. I wished him well, but I didn't wish to return. One morning, Ruth gave me a gift. It was a new notebook. On the first page, she had written, "Write only truth." I smiled. I opened to a fresh page. I wrote, "I was afraid. I was hurt. But now I am free." And I really was. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments.